going to grab one of the Dollar Tree little toddler books that have like cardboard pages and your favorite prints, whatever you want, and a paperback book of some kind. You can do this with a big hardcover book, but I'm going to show you a smaller version. And for me, since I make a lot of stuff, this is easier to store, and I just have more space to decorate with it. Easy to store, and it came up absolutely gorgeous. So you start off by tearing the paperback book apart. You're just going to take it off in little sections, and I found it's better to start on one end, flip the book around, and then do the other end to get a nice clean tear. These little Dollar Tree books come with 3 pages, and I only needed 2, so I'm going to cut one out to use it as a template for what we're going to do next. So I'm using it for a template, and I'm just cutting the pages. I did find, unfortunately, even when I chose a really small bundle, the pages still slip. So I had a lot of evening to do and, cutting to make everything even. I chose to use the edge of the pages as the part I did not cut because I wanted those nice and smooth. So I'm cutting everywhere else, and as you can see, I ended up putting those little pink clips on to hold everything nice and tight so I can get a very clean edge. We will end up making a new the binding of the book, we will end up making a new makeshift one for this little project. I am using some of the Waverly chalk paint in the color plaster, and I'm just going to paint this book so that the imagery doesn't bleed through. I wasn't sure exactly how I was going to glue everything down, so I thought I'll start with just painting this, and I gave it 2 coats. So I'm using apple barrel paint in the color burnt umber, and I'm just going to give the front cover of this book and the back cover 1 coat of this paint. You can use any darker paint you want, but I'm going to be using school glue today to get the crackle effect. I've never done this. I've heard of it, I've seen it, and I decided to use the cheapest school glue I could find just to push my limits a little bit to see if it worked. So I got this glue at Dollar General for $1, and I did notice, if anyone's going to ask me what the difference is between Crackle Medium that you buy on Amazon for I think it's about $12 or $13, and school glue, I did notice the school glue was kind of bubbling up and running, so I had to dry it, as you saw, to stop that. Just a little bit, not a lot, but I had to dry it enough to make it stop kind of shrinking on the surface. And then I just took apple barrel acrylic paint this time instead of chalk paint. I usually use chalk paint, and it was in the color Antique Parchment, which is very similar to the plaster color that I use from Waverly chalk paint, and I started blow drying. So the paint was, or rather the glue was not soaking wet when I did it. I dried it just to the point where it stopped shrinking on the surface. So maybe, if you felt it with your finger, it would have been a little sticky. And then I put my acrylic paint down, and it came up absolutely gorgeous. You definitely do not need to buy Crackle Medium, although the cracks do seem a little bit different. They're like longer. If you want more like a webbed one, I think the Crackle Medium does that better, but still it was absolutely beautiful. So now we're doing the makeshift binder, like we're binding the edge of the book here. I just put some masking tape on one side, squeezed the edge together. We're applying the hot glue in a zigzag pattern so we get all of our pages, and then we're squishing it down and sealing it up with the masking tape, and it worked perfectly. I also just took all the pages that I cut and put them, I chose to break them in half just visually by eye. I didn't count the pages or anything. I just did the best I could, took a guess what looked like an even break, and then I disconnected the 2, you can see the 2 like cardboard pages there. We're going to work with those later. Right now I'm just going to glue those pages down on the inside of the book with some hot glue. Next, using a glue stick, it's just a Dollar Tree glue stick, I am gluing down these images. They are so beautiful. I found them under scrapbook Christmas paper on Temu. They were very cheap. I wish I could remember, but I won't buy it unless it's cheaper than a Dollar Tree. So these were worth it. They came in a very generous set, and I chose some pretty prints. I cut them in half. They're actually supposed to be book pages, so it made it pretty simple and they fit perfectly. But you can also print these up online. I will leave a link down below where you can find lots of vintage prints on clip art. So if you don't have the Temu one, you can use that. And now I'm taking my antique wax and I'm just going to go about antiquing this whole book. So we antiqued the edge of those hard pages. Now we're doing the paper little pages, and next we'll do the book cover. So I wanted to show you how nice and smooth the acrylic paint came out instead of the chalk paint. I actually love this method more. As far as the crackle effect, I always use chalk paint and it comes up really thick and it has streaks. It's still beautiful, but I think if you want a smooth, thinner coat on the top with crackles, go for the acrylic paint. So now I'm using a metallic paint. It's like a copper color. I didn't have gold. I really want to use gold, so I'm going to go ahead and buy gold next time I see it and go over the brass just to add some more metallic look, but for now it came out very pretty. Next, we're going to use Mod Podge, and we are definitely going to be sealing this little book up quite a bit because I am going to keep this guy forever. So I do 2 coats of Mod Podge on the pages right here, and it is, because it's very lightweight, it is hard to keep it from wiggling. So I ended up using that little scoring tool just to hold it. You could use tweezers or anything, a pencil, just something. I'm letting you know it kind of slides around, it's hard. And here comes our second coat. Next, I'm taking this really pretty dainty glitter that I found on Amazon, and I'm just going to apply it around the edges of this book and down the seam a little bit. So I have said before, I don't like glitter. That's a blanket statement, and I should probably clarify. I don't like the dime store glitter, the way it's applied. There's too much. It doesn't stay on, so it gets all over the place. When you buy, something with glitter on from Hobby Lobby, for example, the glitter doesn't come off all over the place. That's why I don't like the glitter in the Dollar Tree. I also think they're heavy-handed unnecessarily, and I have spoken about this before on my channel, that it is suffocating our sea life. So if we're not applying it routinely out of a factory, and then half of the people who buy the items sand it off, put it down the sink or whatever, or they don't want it, you're going to contribute more to the problem environmentally. So it's better to leave it off and let people who want it apply it, because they'll do that and they won't sand it off and put it, you know what I mean? It kind of prevents, hopefully, or slows down the problem. And I always have to mention that because I just feel so bad for our sea life. So I Mod Podged the book cover. The whole book is Mod Podged. I absolutely love the way this came out. Keeping this forever. Would love to know what you guys think. And if you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, I'd love it if you click that button. For this craft, you're going to need 2 of those lights and 4 of those little arch windows. Any of the arch windows will work for this. And I'm just removing all the packaging. When you take that little sign off, there is some sticky glue that's really hard, but it comes right off when you apply heat, and a blow dryer will work for that. And then I just use a little scraper that I got at Dollar Tree, and I just lifted it off. You can see how easy it is. It happened in seconds, so super easy to remove. Took a little tissue, wiped the rest off, and then you'll be good to go. Next, I'm taking some hot glue. It is on high heat right now, and I'm going to go ahead and glue the 2 together upside down. That glue is Surebonder glue. It is very strong. It does claim to glue together plastic, glass, wood, etc. So that is a very good glue for this kind of craft. Next, I'm taking some cardstock, and I'm going to go ahead and put some reinforcement on the back of these. Again, not adding any weight because we have a seam there that's vulnerable. We're just keeping it nice and light. And then I'm adding some spackling in to fill in these little grooves. Now I'm using some Waverly chalk paint in the color ink. It's just black paint, so any black paint will work for this, and you're just going to cover up that seam, the spackling. So you cover that up and make it black again. And then I'm going to apply some white paint. I'm using Apple Barrel white acrylic paint, and I'm going to create old barn wood. So I don't know if I've mentioned this before in my videos because it's so easy to do. If you want to accomplish old barn wood, all it is a black base and white paint dry brushed on, really soft like this with a chip brush, and you'll get this beautiful barn wood look, which, you know, it's another look for faux wood. I love this look. I'm also turning the brush the same direction as the spackling so that it helps disguise that seam there even more when you turn it sideways, and I like it to kind of look rustic and in, you know, different directions. For this particular craft, I think it looks really nice. There are a lot of nooks and crannies on these. You have to go in between each window, but when you're all done, they're beautiful. Now, I did take those downstairs and spray them with the Mod Podge clear sealer. You have to, because it will chip off. It was acrylic paint. And this is the next day. I have these little gold screws, but I'm showing you that on either end of these arches, you have these little screws right here, and you only need to leave one hanger on because you're going to hang it on the wall, so you need one hanger. But you absolutely can steal one screw from each of the back of these. You don't have to use separate screws. It's just I have these little gold screws, so I thought, why not? So I'm just pushing through that sharp little instrument, screwdriver, whatever you want to use. I think the first time I used a screwdriver, second time I used a sharp instrument right here. I puncture a little hole through the rubber piece that came with the lights, and then I put it through to mark where I was going to screw. And by the way, I was thinking, oh no, the screws won't go through. This is hard plastic. It went in like butter. You could do this if you have arthritis. Like, this is so easy to get the screws in. You really do have to screw those pieces down right there because obviously you're going to take the lights in and out to turn them off, even though there's timers, and you're also going to need to change them out sometimes, so you want those to be a permanent fixture. I went ahead and painted the screws black, then I went ahead and put some white paint on to get them to match as close as possible to the rest of the paint job. Of course, when you buy these candles, whether you buy them at the Dollar Tree or Walmart, the gold at the bottom always looks really cheap to me, so for my taste, I want to go ahead and antique these up a little bit and make them look more like there's an antique gold on them. And the easy hack to do that is just to dry brush. Well, you're dry brushing here with dry tissue. It's not a wipe, it's dry tissue, and you're just rubbing black paint all over it. I use the chalk paint by Waverly, but again, you can just use black paint. And then I showed you the difference once it's done. Next, I'm going to take some of the antiquing wax by Folklore. You can use any antiquing wax, and I'm using one of those little Doppler sponges, and I'm just brushing it on here to, I guess, make it so the candles aren't so loud and help disguise that they're plastic a little bit. And also it goes with the rest of the craft because it looks a little distressed, I guess. And next I'm going to apply Mod Podge. Now for this, you do need to dab your Mod Podge on because you will rub the paint off if you try to brush it, because the paint, you know, the surface is just too slick. You could try sanding it, but just to be safe, you just dab on the Mod Podge. It's no big deal, and it actually adds a little bit of texture to the metal and makes it look more real too, so it's kind of a win-win situation on that one. You dry it thoroughly, and then next you go ahead and do the Mod Podge on the candle. With that one, I was able to brush up and down without rubbing the wax off. It rubbed off a little tiny bit, but it wasn't so bad that I had to dab. And I'm going to go ahead and dry those. I will say the Mod Podge left streaks on the plastic that made it look more like melted wax. It came out really good. Next, I'm taking some pine that I got from Amazon, and the link is down below my description box. Anytime I mention something, check the description box because I do try to remember to put what I'm using down there if it's coming from somewhere else other than the Dollar Tree for you guys. So check down below there if you're curious. And the berries are from the Dollar Tree. The ticking stripe ribbon is from Amazon. I'm going to go ahead and glue it into loops, cut the edges as you saw there, take some of the Dollar Tree twine, tie it up, and then make like little swags, I guess, for the bottom of these. Now I do want to change these out with the seasons, so I'm going to go ahead and just tie these on. I'm not going to glue them so that I can take them off. Also, you don't have to put candles in those little rubber holders. I mean, for all year round, I'm going to keep these on my wall all year round, and I'm going to just put like a bouquet of boxwood in there, dried flowers. Use your imagination because you absolutely can stick anything you want inside those little holders, and it's a beautiful wall decor piece. So here I go. I'm just tying it on the bottom. It's that simple. I did have to tie it tighter. You do have to get it on there really tight so it doesn't wiggle around. I absolutely love the way these came out. For this craft, you just Google Christmas stocking pattern or drawing or anything like that, and a bunch of stuff will come up for you. And I printed this one up. It wasn't quite long enough, so as you notice there, I left the paper a little bit longer because I'm going to make my stocking a little bit longer. I'm using this red ticking stripe material that I got from Amazon. I found out it was actually from Hobby Lobby. Someone was selling it on Amazon, but it is getting harder and harder to find. The one I bought is sold out, but they have one that's almost identical, and I left the link down below in my description box if you're looking for it too. You can also paint the red stripes on the thin like muslin-like material that the Dollar Tree sells. If you have time, just tape it off. You can get some faux ticking stripe going there. And I'm using my hot glue just to glue it together. I want mine to have a little thicker top there, so I'm giving it a little bit of a seam or a hem. And the hot glue is going to be fine. And I want mine to be vintage and look kind of old. I like it when the material frays a little bit on the end, so I am gluing it and not turning it inside out. I'm going to leave it just the way it is. I'm using some more of this Temu ribbon here that I got a big amount. I think it was like 12 yards for, I mean, they're lightning deals, so the price varies. That's why I don't leave the links for you guys, but definitely check out Temu for their crafting supplies. And I just glued that on the bottom there because I thought that looked really, really cute. I'm going to tie some twine and glue it up in the corner. That's what's going to hang it. And then during Valentine time, well, not Valentine's Day, but around that time when Dollar Tree brings out their stuff, I collect stuff that looks like it could be used for Christmas because my Dollar Trees are always late in bringing out their Christmas stuff. And so I get stuck having to, I mean, it's because I have to craft ahead here. I will not have anything. So I just grabbed that during Valentine's Day, and you guys might want to do the same. If you see things that look like a gift tag or any shapes that look like they might be for other seasons, it's a good idea to collect those ahead of time. Yes, I put way too much white paint on there. I'm just painting it with Apple Barrel acrylic white paint. I had to put some back in the tub, and I gave it a quick blow dry. I had a definite vision when I created this craft, and I absolutely love it. It came up, again, one of those crafts that came up better than what I thought. You know, it's like I surprised myself. But I wanted to do like a vintage gift tag where the center was lighter and the edges were definitely darker. I'm going really slow here and doing it slowly, and I'm kind of patting on the antique wax. Well, first I streak it all over, and then I just pat it on the edge to make it cloudy and darker. Also, wax has this weird thing that as it dries, if you keep rubbing it, it will rub right off the paint. So if you want to keep applying layers, you're better off dabbing it at that point so you don't remove it from your craft. But I'm also just kind of testing the waters here and seeing how it looks. And I keep looking at it and assessing what's going on. Add a little streaks here and there, but I love the way this turned out. It's perfect for what I was envisioning. And of course, I don't forget the edges. Next, I want to make a vintage sign to go with this craft. So I'm taking 3 of the paint sticks. I get the ones with the ends that aren't curved at the end of them so that I don't waste as much. And even though they're a little bit thinner, I just prefer that because otherwise the sticks are too short and it limits you on what you can make. And I'm just taking some craft sticks and gluing them on, and then, you know, I'm cutting them. And this is like a pruning shear, I think. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. It came in a tool set with the pink one there. I got about 7 different things at Walmart. It was a whole crafting kit. And I want the edges to look broken and old. Like it's a very, very old sign. I'm really going hardcore for the vintage look right now. And so I'm just breaking it apart. And I do have to use a little muscle here, but I get it done. And of course, I'm going to file the edge to make it nice and smooth as well. Of course, I am using my trusty glue stick right here to put some glue on, and I'm going to glue this sign down that I found online. It came up under Vintage Christmas, under copyright free. So you can go ahead and, well, I'll leave you a link to this one, but you can go ahead and look for any one you want on the Clip Art site. They have a lot of free vintage Merry Christmas words that you might like better. And I'm taking the burnt umber from apple barrel paint, and I'm just going to distress this sign, to get it in a theme so everything looks nice and old. Next, I'm taking the color Walnut from the furniture pen. They carry them at Dollar Tree in a set of 3, and I'm going to go around and just edge my little stocking. I'm using some of this polyfill, but of course you can use an old pillow, the stuffing inside an old pillow, some old rags, even a plastic bag. Use your imagination, some cotton, anything. You don't need it very stuffed. I cut way more than I needed. I only ended up using a tiny, tiny amount, and I'm just going for the foot and a little bit up the ankle because I am going to be stuffing some greenery in here, some pine and some berries. Doesn't that look so pretty? But I feel like it's missing something, so I end up grabbing some of that red and white striped twine there, and I make a little bow and I glue it where the hanger is, and that's perfect. That's exactly what it was missing. So now I am using a thumb tack to tack this down. I tried a bunch of different things and I went with this one. I end up using a permanent marker because the furniture pen didn't work. I started off with that first, then I used black, and then I actually do grab some nutmeg paint. I don't show it here on film, but I do have to use some nutmeg paint from Apple Barrel. That's my favorite color for fake rust, by the way. I don't know. Somebody said they didn't know what faux meant, so I say faux and then fake too, but that's what it means. But I went ahead and I did do that a little bit. And as you can see, I am tacking the stocking down. I tack it at the foot, and you'll see me tack it up at the top later too because it needs that. And I'm using the Dollar Tree nautical rope here, and I do choose to use a staple gun. And luckily the nautical rope is so thick that it didn't go through to the other side. It was just perfect. I still used hot glue, and I still put tape over that because I just think it's, just in case the staples come out, I won't get cut. And I'm gluing my sign on the top as well. You have to make sure you get that nice and even, so tape it first before you glue it. I learned the hard way. It kept, it was uneven, and I had to rip it off and do it again to get it even. So tape it first to make sure it's hanging even when you hang it on a wall. There's my second tack, and we're all done. For this next project, I'm using this metal bucket that I got at the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to be using folk art chalk paint. This chalk paint is more akin to like a primer in my homemade chalk paint, and since I didn't have any primer, this is one that will definitely stick to shiny surfaces. It's meant more for furniture, and I just gave it one coat. Now I'm using a vintage picture of Santa here that I got from Temu, but you can find these all day online, and I will leave a link down below in my description box so that you can choose a vintage Santa as well if you wish to recreate this craft. I am taking my glue stick from the Dollar Tree and generously applying it on the back of this image and then applying it to the metal pan. Now I'm about to show you a really fast, simple way to get a birch wood look. I don't want it entirely exactly like birchwood, but this is just the essence of birchwood. I've already shown you how to do birchwood in a separate video. It was basically free. And then the next way I showed you, if you remember, for those of you that watch my channel, was during an Easter video, and I showed you how to do it with glue and napkins really fast as well. It just involves a little spraying of the water. So this is what you're doing here. I took the color Territorial Beige in apple barrel paint, and I just put it on. Well, you saw it's not really dry brushing, it's kind of a light soft paint brushing, and I'm taking a baby wipe now and I'm deliberately wiping off the center of any bigger marks, and see how it's leaving like those little borders, I guess, where the center's clear. Now you see me switching my baby wipe around too. You don't want this, you have to be careful not to make this look like a stain. You're not trying to blur this, although a little bit's okay because that also makes it look like birchwood. So it's definitely a balance. You kind of have to watch what you're doing, but you're just switching your wipe around and rubbing off the center of those marks, and voila, you have a very fast faux birchwood looking type pan. It's not identical, but it definitely gives the feeling. So next I'm taking the color Nutmeg and this little sponge here, and I'm just tapping it on to kind of antique and distress this pan a little bit more. And lastly, I'm going to take the color Black and do the same exact thing. We're just distressing the edges there to make it look dark. And we're all done. Came up absolutely beautiful. Next, I'm taking this foam that I keep from packages. I always recommend that you save your foam if you get them in packages. And I heard this called Celsior grass or something like that on another channel. They pulled it out. It's like a wispier form of moss here. I love it. I ordered it on Amazon. I will leave the link down below in my description box. And we're taking some Dollar Tree skewers now, and we're staining them with the color Burnt Umber. And I'm just using the side of that little sponge brush to do it. It's super easy. And look what else the foam does. That's the foam, by the way, that's soft like a pool noodle. It's not the kind that crumbles. And you can use it to dry those by staking them inside. Now I'm using Cinnamon, super old trick for getting faux rust. I'm doing it more for like air fresheners. I want it to be scented in my house for Christmas, so I'm being very generous. I use my paint to apply the first layer. I leave the paint wet and shake the cinnamon on, but the second layer in the back I actually do glue, because these little wooden cutouts from the Dollar Tree have like sparkles on the back of them, or designs that require a thicker layer of cinnamon to cover. I'm using pine now. I got from Amazon. This is 50 for $15.99, and the little delicate one there in my left hand, that is 25 pieces for $9.99. So these are cheaper than the Dollar Tree per pick. Even if you add 3 of them together, they still come in the same. So much better quality pine. And of course I have to buy ahead of time because I start crafting ahead of time before Dollar Tree brings out their pine. I also got the berries on Amazon. Same thing, very comparable to the Dollar Tree, same price or less. These are some little faux candy. They're like wooden beads that were painted to look like Christmas candy from Temu. Very cheap. I think there was a package of 25 for about $2. And I'm showing you here, if you want it to look like rust more, to take your finger and rub some off, because it definitely gives more of a natural look to it, since rust doesn't usually go completely solid and thick. You know, it has like areas that are heavier and lighter. Just adds a little bit of a nice texture. And I'm just gluing all of these on top of those little stained stakes that I made. Now I decide I want a curly cube in there of wire. I don't know why, I just thought that would be fun. So I'm showing you, I'm taking the Dollar Tree black wire, wrapping it around a paint brush, the end of a paintbrush, and I'm wrapping it around the skewer, and then just, that's it, just for decor. I think it looks so cute and happy that way. And I'm gonna add a snowflake as well and some pine lower. Now to get this pine to look more authentic, you'll see me bending it later in the video. If you want your pine to look like it's actually there, oh, there I am, I'm starting to bend. You can't leave them completely straight and erect like that because it will look artificial and silly. You definitely kind of have to bend them and make them look more like a natural plant when you're all done with this display. And this is definitely a Pinterest inspired craft. Somewhere on Pinterest about 3 years ago I saw a vintage Santa coffee can, I think, and it had a little candle inside. I thought, oh, how cute, I'm going to make one. I'm doing it, you know, my way. It looks different, but it's a great idea. I love it. So I just took one of the Dollar Tree electric candles, painted it, covered it with cinnamon again, and put it inside the front there. And now I'm taking some cardstock. Last minute, I decided to do a gift tag for this, like an antique gift tag. So I'm just rubbing it and grinding it into the cinnamon to get it a little bit tinted. And then I'm going to take the nutmeg color with the sponge and further distress it so it looks nice and old and vintage, and then we'll be writing the word believe on it as well. I don't show it, but you will see in the final reveal, there is a little pine cone to the right of that candle that I end up adding in because, again, it just felt like it was missing something. This is so much fun. You just basically put all these little fun little ornamental things inside this bucket, and this definitely comes in as almost a free DIY if you use a coffee can, if you use dried plants that you find outside and save over the year like grass, pine cones, even berries. You know, you have to be careful, some berries are poisonous though if you have pets or children, but totally fun, so beautiful, very vintage. And here I go with some baker's twine. Like I said, I just put that underneath the little candies. They just look like they were a bead sitting on top of a stick, so they looked a little bit weird. So they definitely needed the bow, but this is an absolutely stunning craft. And I do end up sealing it with a clear varnish when it's all done. I love these tree skirts. They were definitely around last year. I did pick one up for a DIY, and if you want to follow me with my DIYs, you might want to grab one of the silver ones when you get a chance. And here we go. So here's that super cute tree skirt. We are also using a stovetop cover. We're using the small one, and I have this round from Walmart. It cost me $1. I'm using my antique wax to give it a stain and a wet wipe. I do use the Huggies natural wet wipes that are mostly just water for my projects, and I'm going to dry it off really quick here. And then I'm going to go ahead and remove the sticker on the tree skirt. I will tell you, I did have to use my heat gun for about 3 minutes. That was really on there, but it did come off and it did not leave a residue. These are also easy to bend, as you saw there. You know, you can shape it if it's out of shape a little bit, so don't worry. I took my stovetop cover outside and I spray painted it with that hammered spray paint. Isn't it gorgeous? So we have to get it on top of this little tree skirt here. And I knew that the rim on the tree skirt is just too thin and it kind of moves a little bit too much. You just needed something more substantial. So I took the nautical rope from the Dollar Tree and I'm gluing it inside. And I will say, I don't know if it's the glue I'm using or what, I did use high heat, but I tried to take the nautical rope off in one section to readjust it, and it wasn't going to come without shredding the rope. So it's definitely on there. So I'm showing you how flimsy these are. For those of you that have never dealt with these before, you need something more, again, substantial for the base. So we're going to use the metal one because it matches and it looks beautiful when it's on. And hot glue again holds it. I'll show you in a minute here how tough it holds it on. But that's why I stained that piece of wood, because for me, I thought it would look kind of cute for the bottom to kind of look maybe like dirt for this project. You could also make it look like snow. You'll see what we're going to do here in a minute. But I'm just pressing it down, and look, I'm showing you, I'm trying to tuck it off and it's on there. So once you do this, you do not have to worry about it coming off. It will stay there for good. And we just made a super cute riser. I love this one. And we're going to put a little mini tree farm on top of it. This is going to be my table centerpiece this year. I thought it was so cute. Now, I showed you my last video. If you see these LED Christmas lights, grab them up because they already sold out in my Dollar Tree. But that's what I decided to put in the front. But I'm showing you that you can use the other Christmas trees if you want. I just thought this was a nice look because it kind of went from taller, shorter, all the way down. But we're all done, and I think this came up so cute. So if you'd like to recreate this project, these are the items you need to look for at the Dollar Tree. I took them outside and spray painted them. I forgot to remove the sticker on the bottom, so I'm doing it now. And you do not have to spray paint it perfect for this project. Next, I'm taking some of this green from Apple Barrel paint, and I'm just adding it here and there kind of haphazardly. There's no rhyme or reason to this. I'm just adding it wherever I feel like it might be a little accent piece. And then for just the top part of these, I decided to add some of the pearlescent metallic folk art acrylic paint. That's a mouthful. Just to try and get it to match the bottom little candle holders in case some of that silver peeked out. As it turns out, you don't see it, but I gave it my best shot, so I just wanted to show you my steps. I'm giving this a really good blow dry, and then next we're going to be adding the Crackle medium to this. Now, school glue will also work for this. I've never tried it, but I've heard plenty of people say it, and I've watched it happen on film before, so I think it's true. But I just bought the Crackle medium, and I'm going to go ahead and use a brush and apply it all over the candle holders and the top little vases. You certainly can leave the top part just glass if you want to. I've just done so many see-through glass lanterns that I thought it would be really fun and pretty to try something different. And I kind of wanted to make something for my French country people out there, or cottage core, farmhouse too. This would definitely go with farmhouse or vintage. This is kind of a hit, many different different ones you can do with this. So I'm using the color plaster from Waverly Chalk Paint. I do use chalk paint for this whenever I do the Crackle medium because you only get one shot. You have to go over it pretty much. You can see I'm gently going over it here and there, you know, a little bit, but basically you want to try and only do one coat and then move on. Don't linger and don't do another coat, because you see I just did it there, but it still looks good, but it lifts off a little bit, and you don't want that to happen too much because you want your crackling. So go with a one coat paint. I do have a recipe for homemade chalk paint down below my description box. I made 2 videos on that. They're non-toxic and easy and affordable to make. I just ended up buying a bunch of chalk paint, so I'm using it up. So we're just going to put this also on the inside. I don't know if you guys noticed, but I did put the Crackle medium on the inside of these vases because you are going to be able to see that. So I'm covering that now with my chalk paint. So now I'm using my heat gun, which is really kind of like a glorified dryer. I didn't buy a really expensive heat gun, but it does get hotter than a dryer, so it does help dry things faster. And I am blow drying this because I'm being honest, I did not wait the full hour for the Crackle medium to dry like it says to. And when you don't wait the full hour and you want to move along like me, I think I waited about 40 minutes. You do have to dry it to kind of help it along, and you get that beautiful crackling effect right there. Ignore the crazy super glue thing. I couldn't get the lid off, so I cut the bottom of it because there was a ton in there and I wanted to use it before I threw the container away. I used the super glue and hot glue for an instant hold and then a permanent hold. Hopefully it seems to be holding really strong. It's another one of those, you know, I think the Sherboner glue is really good. It holds. Unless you're going to throw something across the room, it's definitely good enough for decor in your home. So now I'm using some of this beautiful burlap ribbon that I got from Temu. I really like this one. I bought more. It's super cheap, and you'll see it there if you look under crafting items. It kind of, I think it's promoted, but it pops up a lot. I love this one, and I don't want to put anything permanent on this, obviously, because it will damage the paint. So I just glued the little burlap ribbon around the bottom, and then I'm going to take some pine, and I wanted this to be very humble, very simple. Less is more. I thought that was perfect for this. It ends up being so beautiful, so I made a good call there. I didn't want it to overpower the vases. So I'm just putting some delicate pine on it, and then I choose the Dollar Tree berries this time because they're also more subtle and more delicate than the other big red juicy ones. And we're going to put that on the center between the 2 pieces of pine that I put down. I am super excited to decorate with these for Christmas and for all year round as well. I think they're so pretty. I'm going to put them on my fireplace mantle, but let me know what you guys think. You're going to need the following items for this next project, and I just started off by taking the back of that arched window, that thing on the back, that stand. It has a ribbon, and then it has a little metal piece there that if you bend it back and forth, it just snaps off like that, super simple. And it also has a really nice piece of hardware on the back that you could, if you collect them, you could make an awesome windmill with that, just saying. But I took all the pieces off on the back that I thought would interfere with what I was going to do next. And then this little piece right here, this clip, is screwed in with this tiny screw, and all I did was unscrew it and then lift it up above where the hole was before, and the wood is super soft, or I don't think it's wood, I think it might be that MDF board, but either way, if you just put a little bit of pressure right here, you can see me pressing, you can create a new screw hole, and you can raise that up because it needs to be a little bit higher for this craft. It needs to be about there. So you can see the old hole where it's coming at right there. I zoomed in there so you could see it up close. You just get it to there, and then you go ahead and stain it with either paint or wax. I'm using wax. I probably should have waited to screw it in until after I stained. I mean, it was no big deal. I just went around it and I got everything, but I was afraid to take it out because I was afraid if I put it back in, it wouldn't stay. So I just left it, stained around it. Now I'm staining the edges and all the little windows. And next we're going to stain the crate the same exact color. And I did use a baby wet wipe for both of these things, except for the inside of the crate where the corners were in the bottom. I found it was actually simpler to squirt a little bit of water into the lid of the wax there. You can see there's some water mixed with the wax, and to use a brush to finish this. Next, I took some cardstock and I am just tearing it around the edges. And I'm going to try and get it the same size as this stencil here because I want to use the word believe right there. So I'm going to go ahead and test it, lay it on top to make sure it fits, and then we're going to go about distressing this tag. So the back, I just did it solid brown, and then on the front, I used the wax and I just hit, you can see right there, I just hit the edges. But by the time you're done hitting the edges, you should have just a little tiny bit of wax on the sponge so that you're able to lay the cardstock down and rub the front of it. You'll see me do it here, and you'll have a pretty light stain. See, I'm kind of pressing hard, and you know, if you don't put, you can't go straight with the wax because if you do, it'll be too dark. So you want to use your heaviest wax on the edge of the cardstock, and you want to save, you know, you can test it on another piece of paper. If you're not used to doing this, I kind of have a feel for how much wax I need to put on it. If you're not used to doing this or you're new to crafting, I suggest that you test it on a little piece of white paper first just to make sure. Now I'm using the color Ink from Waverly Chalk Paint. It's just black paint. And I'm going around the edges again because I want to give them that burned, like it's burnt, that look. So I'm taking a fine, super fine tip Sharpie, and I'm tracing out the word believe, and then I'm just going to take the regular fine tip Sharpie and fill it in. All the hot glue in this video is the Surebonder glue. I have actually tried both the Gorilla and the Surebonder, and I do prefer the Surebonder a little bit more. I think it has a stronger adhesion, but it also has more choices as far as what it holds or claims to hold together, so it's just easier to work with, and it's very affordable if you order it on Amazon or if you buy it at Walmart. I'm using some of the Dollar Tree Spanish moss and some of the pine that I bought and the berries that I bought from Amazon. If you're interested in this pine, it is down below my description box. It comes in a little bit cheaper than the Dollar Tree, but the Dollar Tree has absolutely beautiful pine. If you watched my last shop with me video, they left off the glitter, and it's competitive with the high-end pine for sure. It's beautiful. I am taking a bell. These are bells that are already aged from Temu, and I love them. I think I splurged. I think they were like $4 something, but you got a decent amount and it was worth it. It was really pretty. But I also showed last week how you go about making the Dollar Tree bell look the exact same way. Now I'm using some little candied beads from Temu as well, and I just took a Dollar Tree skewer. I am using the furniture pen from the Dollar Tree to stain it. It's a great fast way to stain it, and I did put a little bit of hot glue on the tips of those beads so that they'll stick on that stick. I also added some pine cones, and I'm adding those little candies, and now I'm using one of the Dollar Tree little wooden Christmas trees. I removed the sticky thing and tried to sand off the sticky part as best as possible, and I'm using the furniture pen for this as well, and you can't see it. It looks fine. After I do that, I take some of the white paint from Apple Barrel Paint, and I'm just kind of tapping it on the edge of this tree to give it a little bit of a flocked look because I thought that was pretty. But because the tree is dark, I decided to leave the stick just natural, the little skewer, and I'm going to stab that inside the moss to hold it up. Using my favorite color for rust, nutmeg from Apple Barrel Paint, I'm just going to distress and rust up that clip there so it matches. And I found these at my last Shop With Me video. These are those little emergency candles. Be sure to grab the AAA batteries because these do take 2 of them. They have like a little twist bottom that turns it on. So leave the bottom of the stand off so you can take it in and out, easy to turn it on and off. But I put the believe sign on, and I thought this is such a beautiful accent piece for Christmas on an entry table or a shelf. I love this. For this project, I'm using a Dollar Tree bucket that I got for the fall. I love these little buckets. You can use a coffee can or an old bucket container or an old paint container, whatever you can find. I just happen to have one of these buckets and they're super cute, so I thought I'd use this. And I'm going to go ahead and cover it with Folklore chalk paint in the color Linen. That's just a really good chalk paint for adhering. Waverly kind of chips off sometimes on these shiny surfaces, so if you're going to use Waverly, try to buff up your surface a little bit with some sandpaper. And I'm using this ice skate that I picked up at the Dollar Tree out of the Christmas ornament section. I'm going to use this metallic paint here. It's just silver because I want my little blade at the bottom to look more like metal, and I didn't worry if I had a super solid coverage right there. See how it's shiny? I'm showing you how much better that looks. So I didn't mind if a little bit of the brown showed through because I'm kind of making this look older and distressed. So I'm taking a little bit of antique wax with a baby wipe and I'm just going over the fur a little bit. I just don't want it to look brand spanking new. Just a little bit of age here around the blade and around the fur on top so it looks like an ice skate that's actually been used. I got these birds maybe like a year ago at the Dollar Tree. I thought they'd be perfect for a winter DIY, but I didn't care for the beak and the color there. It just looks really cartoonish to me and just over the top a little bit. So I trimmed the beak down to make it look a little less, harsh. And I'm also going to take some of the wax there and paint the beak and paint the little feet just to tone those down as well and make them look more natural. I have some silicone molds that I ordered off of Amazon that makes these little trims here. I actually just globbed a bunch of hot glue in it and put it in the microwave and melted the glue to make sure that it went down in all the little crevices. It was just something I was kind of playing around with a month ago, and I decided to use it now. I had to work with what I had. So this was an image from some scrap paper. I remember seeing it thinking, oh, that would be a nice, winter image for a winter DIY. So that's what we're using today. It's like a house just with snow in the middle of a field, but I folded over the top because that had some ivy and some berries, which you still see in wintertime. I mean, it wasn't totally the end of the world if you have those colors because those are winter colors. It's just, I was trying to go for more of a white look and limit the amount of reds that I have in all my DIYs. So I painted this little trim here and I'm just gluing it on. I used the big guns. I'm sure you noticed I opened up a package of the E6000 because for this one I did want it to stay, and it's heavy. That hot glue trim there is kind of heavy. So I used a little hot glue in E6000, and now I'm just kind of distressing everything with the Antique Wax by Folklore. You can use any antique wax. You could even use brown paint and a baby wipe just to make it look a little older. This is some, I want to say it's boxwood, but I actually think it might have come under eucalyptus. If somebody knows for sure, it could be a species of eucalyptus, I guess. But I just flocked it with a brush and some white acrylic apple barrel paint to make it look like snow, went all over it. And then because, again, this is kind of a heavier craft right here, I was heavy-handed with the Mod Podge. I really wanted to seal it in there so that it could handle being touched and used throughout the years. I'm going to keep this forever. I love this one. So I just knew that I wanted it to stay on that metal bucket. So here's some packing foam that came in one of my Amazon packages. I keep everything, and I'm just using that for my florals. I did have to cut them down about 2 notches, or like there's little notches on the bottom of it. You can see like little lines there, and I just went up 2 on each one and trimmed it with a wire cutter, and then that worked perfect. Well, that was a good height for that bucket. Now I'm taking the Dollar Tree skewers. I'm just staking my little ice skate. I left them natural wood because I think that goes really good. I kind of think winter decor is also like a woodland theme. I see people doing woodland themes of DIYs, and I think those actually are perfect for winter DIYs, usually, unless they're adding Christmas accents. But this is definitely woodsy. I add a little sprig of evergreen in there. I added some of the big, really cute pom-poms that look like snowballs as a filler at the bottom, just to add a little bit more winter touch, and some pine cones that are scented cinnamon. I'm just gluing things in there that have to do with winter. Those are Dollar Tree wooden snowflakes, which I thought added a nice touch. And we're pretty much all done. I love the way this came out. Like I said, I'm going to keep this one forever. I think it's so elegant. Someone came on last time when I made something similar for Christmas and said at Pottery Barn you would pay about $65 for something like this, and I believe it. And this cost me, I believe, under $10 to make. For this next project, you're going to need 4 of these mirror windows from the Dollar Tree. And I just opened each one up, took the back out, took the mirror out, and then I'm left with those little black pieces right there. So I'm just using a screwdriver to take them out. You need a little tiny one. It's not a big deal. It goes really fast. Next, I took 5 of these little craft sticks or popsicle sticks, whatever you want to call them, and you need to make 4 sets of 5. So I'm gluing them together just like that, and I have 4 sets all together. After you take the screws out, you are left with this little plastic piece where the screws went, and it jots out. I didn't worry about the bottom ones in the 4 corners there because you're not going to see those if you put, decor into this. But I didn't want the side ones or the top one, and they were pretty straightforward. I just used a craft knife and kind of went along the edge and cut until I lifted them out, and then they just lifted right off and they were gone. And then whatever, you don't have to get it absolutely perfect, and you'll see why in a minute. Be careful you don't tear the plastic, of course, or cut through it. And then here you're going to take 2 of those frames and you're going to glue your craft sticks in them just like you saw on either side, just 2. Don't do it to all 4, you're only going to do it to 2. And then that's what you're going to use to glue. We're making a little winter lantern. I love this one. We're going to use those craft sticks to glue that together on the sides, because you can see it doesn't have like a solid frame on the inside, but I totally wanted to make a lantern out of this, so I took them home and I was going to make it work. Next, I'm taking some spackling and I'm going to mix a little bit of that with just plain white acrylic paint. And what we're going for here is a stucco effect. You'll see it in a minute here, because we definitely have to knock this up a notch and make it look a little bit more expensive, because otherwise it does look like plastic in real life. So I'm mixing my paint up with the spackling, and if you don't have this, you might have those spray paints that have the sand in them. You could do that instead and then paint it whatever color you wanted. And in a pinch, you can use baking soda, but you'd have to be really generous with your baking soda. Mix it into your paint until it looks really gritty like this. And I do mean generous, but you can get the same effect with baking soda. And then you're just going to more or less kind of tap it on, I guess. It's like a stippling type brushwork here, but you can see all the little like texture it's leaving behind. And this was kind of time consuming, but it came up so beautiful. I had to do the inside, and of course there's all those little crevices. And that's why it doesn't matter so much if you don't get the top and the sides perfect with the removal of those plastic pieces, because you're not going to see it anyway. But here it is when we're all done, and I think it came out so beautiful. Okay, we're going to be taking these 3 absolutely dorky looking Dollar Tree bells and bringing them up to speed with current on-trend home decor. So go ahead and grab 3 of them and remove all of the paraphernalia and decoration on the tops. Next, you're going to use a glass, any glass that is the right height that you want these bells to be. So this is actually a Dollar Tree glass. You might recognize it. But you just put a little hot glue at the bottom, and this is just a temporary hold. It's just to get your bell nice and straight. Make sure your bell is nice and straight as you can make it. And then you're going to take a pen just like this and lean it on the glass and go around and make a line on your bell. Next, you're going to remove your bell and just pick the hot glue off. Everything comes off nice and easy for you. And that's what it should look like when you're all done. Now here comes the really important step. You do need to put tape above the line, right above it, like I am. Follow the line nice and straight for the next step. And what this does is it gives a brace to your bell basically. So when you go to cut this and reshape it, it's not going to crack. Notice I pushed the tape down too. Make sure you push it down really hard all around so it's got a firm grip on that bell. Now here we are in real time, and you can see how slow I'm going, and I'm cutting in at angles. So you want to cut in almost like you're making triangles. If you try to cut all the way around, there's too much resistance with the plastic and it will crack, or it might crack. The tape pretty much it prevents that, but you never know. I don't know what kind of scissors you have. Mine are really sharp, but you definitely want to go slow. Now I sped this up again, but I am going super, super slow, even sped up 3 times. So this is 3 times as fast, and I'm still going kind of slow. So you can imagine in real life, you know, it's not sped up how slow I was going, because you have to nibble away slowly in little tiny chunks. And it's all in an effort to prevent cracking, but it's worth it. So here I am still trimming away, and once you get to that line, there's going to be like an ink line left, but it actually looks really good. So use your permanent marker in black, because that black line is going to look awesome when the DIY is all done. Now you're going to remove your tape, and that's what it should look like. Look at that magic. We now have a totally current shaped, awesome looking bell to work with. So now you're taking a baby wipe. I'm using Huggies Natural, the ones It's mostly just water and a little bit of well, I'm using chalk paint and plaster, but you could use black paint, but I just use chalk paint, and you're tapping it on. You're basically tapping it on, that's it. You're just tapping it all over this bell. You're gonna go on the outside and up on the inside, and it creates an absolutely amazing effect. It makes it look like antique gold instead of that cheap, nasty little fake foil metallic gold that they got going on there. This makes it look like real metal and makes it look old and vintage and just good. So for the tops, I decided to use sisal rope. You can choose whatever you want. It's just this is what I had on hand, and this is what I felt would look really good and complimentary based on what I had on hand. You know, I probably would have thought of something else, but you work with what you got. But I love the way it turned out. So there's little holes on the side of the bell, and you're just going to push whatever you use down and pull it through on the other side until you get the circle to the size that you want. I wanted it to be about that size. And you notice I burned the sisal rope beforehand. I actually singed it on purpose so that it would look older, but it's still not dark enough, so I end up doing more. So I did all 3 bells, and now I'm using the wooden stick from those sponge brushes. Save those, by the way. Those are great for DIYs, and I cut them in 3 different pieces. They don't have to be totally even. You just have to cut them in 3 different pieces. Those are going to be our chimes. And I'm using a nail file to file them down. Next, I'm taking antique wax. Any antique wax will work, and you're just staining these nice and dark. You're not going light on this one. You're going nice and dark. Next, you're going to take that antique wax and you're going to go ahead and stain. If you use sisal rope or twine, you're going to stain that super dark as well. You can use black paint or brown paint for this too. I mean, it would work as a stain. Just use the baby wipe because that will help your paint work more like a stain instead of paint. But the aim here for me anyway is just to get that sisal rope looking nice and vintage to match the bells, and of course getting it darker. It looks so beautiful when it's done. This is my favorite DIY. Well, actually I love all of them, but there's always a favorite that you go, oh, wow, that came out way better than what I thought. Anyway, I'm putting the nautical rope, that's what I'm using for the chime, the little bell or whatever it is. I am using that, and I glued it up at the top, what you saw right there. And because these sticks are different lengths, I went ahead and glued it in first and then cut it to the length that I needed and kept testing it until it got to the right height. And then I just put a little bit of hot glue on the tip of the nautical rope. You can see it right there, I'm holding it, and I'm gluing my little chime down. And that's it. Look how cute that is. Oh, it's so beautiful. This is going on my front door this year. So next you're going to use the nautical rope, or I used the nautical rope. You can, if you'd like to use something else, you can. This is how I made mine, but I'm using the nautical rope, and if you saw me pick it up, test it to make sure it kind of rings back and forth and it's got enough movement, but it's not too big. Check your little loop. And I use some hot glue to pinch that together. And now I'm using some of the Walmart twine, which is a little thicker than the Dollar Tree twine. It comes in a spool for about $5. They may have raised the price since I last bought it, but last I bought it, I think it was $5 or $6, but it lasts forever. And then I'm just going to wrap that around, and you add hot glue as you need it, wherever you feel like you need it to secure it. I just did it at the beginning and at the end, and if I felt like it needed it in the middle, I did a little bit in the middle. I think I did it right there in the middle too. And then I put it at the end right there, and I'm going to finish off the tip with hot glue as well and pinch it down, and then you get this really, really cute little twirled hoop there that holds your bells. So I adjusted all the different nautical rope to the right height. You know, I held it up. I didn't show you all of that because it's kind of self-explanatory. You want to make sure your nautical rope is cut in the right lengths so that the bells cascade and fall down gradually the way that you like them. And that's what I did. And so now I am gluing the little loop at the top on top of those 3 nautical rope strands that are attached each to a bell. And I'm going to take the same twine from Walmart and wrap it around at the top. The same thing I did on each one of the bells, I'm doing at the top, and that's going to be the loop that holds them at the top. And once you're done with them, you can add pine and berries on the top. That's what I did, just to hang them for Christmas, but for all year I'll leave them plain. But you're going to hold them up, and you're going to be absolutely thrilled because these look absolutely awesome. I think they do. I'd love to know what you guys think, but I'm serious, the Dollar Tree bells are awful. project, I'm using these square signs from the Dollar Tree, and I really wanted to use a stencil, so I ended up having to cut one in half. And it's easy to do. You just take a utility knife and score it, and then snap it, and it snaps apart. And then I'm using some hot glue just to start this off with gluing it together. Then I'm going to scrape any residual hot glue off. And I am going to use craft sticks for this one. I'm not planning on hanging this one. This is going to be one that I lean on one of my tables against the wall. You can put a hanger on it if you want. I am using some spackling to fill in the holes. I found I had really good luck using a spatula, that little metal tool, any flat thing. It actually, look at that, the holes totally disappeared on this one. You couldn't see them. So the finger definitely leaves a little bit of an indentation. If that doesn't bother you, that's fine. But I was trying to get rid of the holes. That's why I was putting the spackling in there. So that helped a lot. I went ahead and ended up putting more craft sticks on the back of this because as soon as I painted it and it got wet, it kind of started to bend and warp a little bit as it dried. And if you put craft sticks on the back, or painter sticks, you can stop that from happening. I also put some craft sticks behind the spackling so the spackling wouldn't fall out. And then I gave it a second coat of acrylic paint. This is just apple barrel acrylic paint. Now, because we have that line in the board already, I had no choice but to go ahead and score this like shiplap all the way across so that it matches. So I'm just using a utility knife now, and I'm going over about 3 to 4 times, not enough to break the board, just enough to get a deep groove so that it matches our other deep groove and we have some cohesiveness. Next, I'm tracing out this stencil. This was a really good deal. You got about 10 of these, I think, for maybe $10. It was like $1 each. They're big, from Temu, and I went ahead and used permanent marker. Now, I did start off with paint and it was a hot mess. I even have a spray-on adhesive. Still a hot mess. I'll tell you, whoever invented the silk stencils, the silk screens that stick down and they're sticky, genius. But I went ahead and used ink because in vintage signs they used to use paint or ink, so either one will do. So I just used the permanent Sharpie markers, and I did find that if I just swept them in one direction, the tip of them didn't get ruined from the paint. Now, someone came on years ago and told me if you put Mod Podge on the sign and you use the Sharpies over that, it won't dry out and ruin your marker, but I didn't want to put Mod Podge on the sign at all because I thought that would kind of take away from the vintage look. So I just kept wiping it off with a baby wipe, the tip of it, and then going back, and it seemed to work. Now here's a little hack that you can use when it still bleeds even with a marker. You just take a craft knife and you literally scrape and shape the letters however you want. This sign actually took me about 4 hours to do because I really wanted to make a nice one. I used to have a bunch of these, but when I moved, I gave them all away, so I have to make a few more. So you can see up there where it says authentic, I actually scratched the entire E off because it wasn't coming out right. So you can just, I'm showing you up close how I'm changing the letters. So if you do see that one's thick or looks yucky or whatever, don't panic. Just take a little knife and gently scrape it off. And before I forget to mention, I was holding down the stencil with like a scoring tool in the corners where it had bent. Unfortunately, I bent it when I washed off the paint after trying to stencil, and it was an epic fail. So I had ruined some of the corners. In fact, one of the stencils that came from Temu was actually so bent I couldn't use it. So I am taking some white paint and dry brushing. I'm going over the words for sure, in case you missed that, just so that they look distressed and old, because this is supposed to be a vintage sign. But when I was all done, I really felt like it was missing something, so I wanted to add some little accent on there, something that just made it look more Christmassy and vintage. So I'm taking this darker green paint that I found in the apple barrel section. It's kind of like a dark winter green. I forgot what it's called, but they have their traditional green and they have some really dark, beautiful like pine greens. So took a wet wipe, stained these paint sticks. I get these paint sticks from Amazon. I buy them because they don't have that weird little edge on the end that you have to cut off. They're a little tiny thinner, but I prefer having the full length of the paint stick to work with. The link again is down below in my description box. And now I'm using the antique wax to distress the edges a little bit. We're going to give this a really good blow dry for our next step, and then we're just going to take our hot glue gun and start making these little squiggly lines. I did this 3 years ago on my channel for Easter and a couple times since. It is an absolutely fantastic way to do like a faux vintage or a faux border, and it's a lot easier, less toxic than like an epoxy pour, easier than a clay mold or squirting your hot glue into like a silicone mold. And a lot of people, it's really cute, that's what I was going to finish saying, they come on and they'll say, I can't do that, my hand would be so unsteady. Well, if you look up close, it's a hot mess with me too. But I promise you, you can fix it. So you can see I'm doing it right here. You just take a craft knife and you take off whatever you really don't like. You can even cut the lines in the middle. I took one part of the line out there because I'm going to redo it, and you just keep redoing it. Even if it looks messy, I promise you when you're all done, it looks beautiful. It's just one of those things. So I went ahead and touched it up with some green paint, and now we're doing the magic. We're doing the dry brushing, which brings out all of these designs. Look at that. To me, that is so gorgeous for what it is right there. That looks like a piece of metal or oxidized, there's one of the metals that's either bronze or copper. Someone comment down below, but it oxidizes like a greenish color like this, bluish green. This just reminded me of metal. Speaking of, you could use a metallic paint to make this an actual metal, like a metal bar on top of the sign, but either way, I love this accent. I think it really made this piece. Let me know what you think down below in the comments, but that's it. We just finished it off and we're all done. So this is the Dollar Tree cutting board, which I am absolutely falling in love with. I bought 3 of them. If you can find them, buy them up because they have what appears to be a thin little sheet of wood glued on the front. So when you touch it, it actually feels like wood grain. There is wood grain there, but it has words. So if you attempt to sand off those words because they are so dark, you will sand down the grain feeling and then you'll end up with a flat area and it doesn't look good. So in this case, it's actually better to paint the board, and that way you have the wood grain still there, and just bring back the wood with a bit of antique wax, which is exactly what I'm doing today. So I painted it with plaster, which is chalk paint, Waverly chalk paint. It's a 1-coat paint, and that way it won't get too thick or goopy, and we'll still get our wood grain peeking through. And I'm just taking a baby wipe with a little bit of the antique wax, and we're going to try and put back the wood grain look there because I actually like the way it looks when it's the brown color for this craft. So the way to achieve this effect is to press lighter and heavier with your baby wipe and the antique wax. So you'll leave a little more wax on in areas and you'll streak it on purpose, and then you won't go over that area again. So if you find it's not coming out just right at first, all you have to do is wipe it off, because I'm actually using Huggy baby wipes, the ones that are mostly water, which is perfect for these kind of crafts because they don't leave any they don't leave a lot of chemicals or other ingredients behind to mess up or discolor anything. And also don't forget your sides. By the way, the Dollar Tree did not do the sides, so when you redo these, they actually look better. Doesn't that look awesome? But it's really simple to do. You just, if you mess up, just wipe it off and you can start over, and you keep practicing until you get those streaks in there. Here's another ornament from Walmart's last year's clearance for 75% off, so I almost got that one pretty much for free. There will be a free printable down below in the description box. Because of copyright, I did have to make some changes on that photo there, but it's close enough that you can recreate this project. For distressing the edge of this cutting board, I'm going to go ahead and use a permanent marker. Now you can barely tell, but I'm actually feather light, going up and down, up and down, up and down as I go around the edge of the cutting board. I'm not pressing hard and just drawing on it, if that makes sense. I'm just barely kind of tapping it and letting it, it's almost like stippling with the pen, but it creates a more natural look for distressing, in my opinion. It doesn't look as harsh. Now I'm just going to add a little bit of hot glue here to glue that truck cute little sign on the front of my cutting board. If you want the same effect from the free printable that I'm providing, just go ahead and glue it down on some craft sticks first, or one of the little Dollar Tree wood pieces, and you'll have the exact same look. For this, I'm using a little bow at the top there because I do have a hole on mine that I want to cover up. And I'm using more of the pine that I ordered from Amazon. It's very delicate, I was just in the mood for more of a delicate pine mixed in with the thicker, hardier pine. I thought that was a nice combination. And I'm also showing you how you can really make your florals go. Like, I easily could have just cut the top off on that pine and put the whole top on there. And as you can see, I chose to take the bottom half, cut all the little pieces off, and then just use those little pieces. And it's more than enough for embellishment. So keep that in mind. You can definitely stretch your florals. Here's some ribbon from the Dollar Tree. I thought this was perfect for a country Christmas. I'm just making a standard bow, and this time I'm going to use some of the Dollar Tree wire in the middle of it to tie the center like that. I'm just going to twist it, cut the wire off, bend it backwards, and that will be the center for my bow. Next, I'm going to do the exact same thing with some of the Dollar Tree burlap ribbon, and I'm going to glue it down. First the burlap, and then the little ticking stripe red one, and then I'm kind of placing my pine around to get a feel for where I'd like to put it. I'm going to put some on the bottom, some on the top, and kind of mix it up a little bit. And then, if memory serves me correctly, for $1.58, I got like 20 of these super cute peppermint candies. You're going to see it in a minute. They're nice and round right there. They almost feel real, like real peppermint candies. I glued that in the center. I think this one came up so cute. Please let me know what you think in the comments. This is a wood round that I got from Walmart. They're $1, and I just have to remove the staples in them. They were very hard to remove, by the way, but I ended up using a wire cutter, and it worked because I don't have an official staple remover. I need to get one. And now I'm taking some of the hula skirt right there, and I'm just threading it through an embroidery needle because I'm going to put some beads around these wood rounds, but I want to make sure that I have enough and I space them correctly. You know, it's a good idea to make sure so that you don't end up with big gaps in between your beads, exactly how much you need. So once I figure that out, I take the beads off of that and I start gluing them down. And the trick here is to try and use as little of the hot glue as you need because you don't want it to get globby on the other side of the beads, although you can clean that up to some extent. You'll see me do that later. It's kind of better if you just use just what you need, and then we're going to be reinforcing it with wood glue in a bit. So here I go with my little craft knife. I am cutting the glue globs that did glob over a little bit too much off and pulling it out with a tweezer, but again, totally better if you just kind of prevent that from happening. And I'm using a nail file just to clean up the edges of the board because they had a little bit of roughness to them that I didn't like. Now I'm using the wood glue. I believe I got this at the Dollar Tree, and I'm just putting a little tiny dot down the back side of each one of those beads because for the first layer I couldn't use wood glue. I've tried it before with the hot glue, and it makes the hot glue not dry and the beads fall off. So you have to start with hot glue, reinforce with wood glue. The second one that you put on top, you can use the wood glue for. So for that one, I put the wood glue on the beads every other bead, and then I do hot glue every other bead, and that works perfectly. And you'll have a nice strong hold. I'm going to use this glass candle holder from the Dollar Tree, and those Dollar Tree cutting mats that come two to a pack, I am finding them to be so helpful for crafting. I just use that like a lazy boy because they slide around on your work surface to twirl that around to make sure I absolutely glued it in the center from all different angles because I can't stand it if I get it off center. And now I'm using super glue and hot glue and gonna glue this down for a permanent hold. But I've been using those mats for cutting, even for painting, because you can wipe the paint off and wash them. They are very handy for crafting, so keep that in mind if you see them next time. So once this is dry, I go ahead and start painting it white. Now we're going to be using 4 different colors on this to get the effect that I want. I even considered doing a Crackle medium on here, but I didn't want it to be quite that cracked, so I thought I would hold off because that wasn't quite the look I was going for. So the first color I put on here is the plaster from Waverly Chalk Paint, and then once that's dry, right now I'm going to go with the bright white from Apple Barrel Paint. Because we're looking for dimension, we're looking to make it a little older. Now we're doing pewter gray, and I'm giving it dry brushing, and you just kind of have to keep working with this again until you get it where you want it. I want it to look really aged, like it's had many layers of paint and different owners. So now I'm going in with the antique parchment, and from Apple Barrel Paint, it's very similar to the pewter, a little bit from the Apple Barrel, but it's a little bit more creamy, I guess. And I'm adding that over the gray to tone the gray down. Now I'm going to add a little bit of nutmeg from Apple Barrel Paint just here and there for some warmth, but that's going to be more or less mostly covered up, but you will still see the warmth peeking through. So now I'm taking the antique parchment and going over the nutmeg. I'm giving this a good blow dry. And then after the white, you'll see me doing just a little bit of distressing on the edges with the pewter gray again, but I wanted to make a really glamorous on trend. These are still in Hobby Lobby, they're still in Target. I wanted to create an on trend riser for my holiday decor, so I thought this would be really glamorous and nice. Now I found this at the Dollar Tree. I've never seen this before. I think it's pronounced lycopodium. Somebody comment down below if you're familiar with this, but I thought it looked just like pine and it was perfect for Christmas, so I bought it during the summer and I've been saving it. Here's an ornament I got at Walmart again. I go after Christmas when everything's 75% off, so I think I only paid about 48 cents. I mean, it was hardly anything, and it's metal, it's thick, it's absolutely beautiful. It was almost too beautiful for a tree, so I wanted to showcase it a little bit, and this is what I came up with. So that little wood round, or it's not a round, it's like a flower shape. It was part of some wood cutouts that I also got in a package for $1 from Walmart, and I'm not really ever going to use it. And I didn't want to glue the snowman up on the tray because I obviously didn't want to damage my riser, and this was the perfect solution because it wasn't, it was flat. I didn't want to use the towering blocks because that would make my snowman a little higher than I wanted. So you can do that with any little flat piece of wood cut out from the Dollar Tree from any season. Just create a little stand so that he's nice and flat. Your ornament, whatever your ornament is, and you can use a Dollar Tree ornament. They have beautiful ornaments. You could even, you could showcase anything on a riser like this. But I just start putting that lyco, whatever it is, all over there. Then I start using some of the pine from Amazon and tucking in here and there. I even add a little pine cone to the left, and this comes up absolutely stunning. I add some berries, then one little berry, just a splash of color, and we're all done, and it's beautiful. For this next project, I'm using 2 of these Dollar Tree little houses. They're like shadow boxes on one side with a chalkboard, and I'm just using a hairdryer to remove the stickers. I also got 2 of these wooden plaques from the Dollar Tree, and I'm giving them a sand because they're definitely rough on the sides, and we're going to be using those as a base, and I'm going to give them a quick coat of white paint. Next, I'm going to be using this really pretty Christmas craft paper that I got from Temu. It was super cheap. I picked it up as a last minute thing. I think they pushed it out at like $1.59 or something, and it was so much prettier than I thought. And there are tons of different photos in there. That's going to last me a few years. So I was really pleased with that. And this is some craft paper, again, from Temu. It's 6x6, but I decided to do combinations just for a little bit more contrast and a little bit more fun for the eye to look at, but they're complementary to each other. And then I chose for my imagery a vintage Santa and a vintage Christmas tree. And we're just cutting everything out and getting it nice and even. And we're going to go to the good old glue stick here to glue these down and let it dry. So it was a little wet with the glue stick, just a tiny bit. You do have to let it dry a little bit before you sand it. Maybe, I don't know, like 3 or 4 minutes. It dries pretty quick. But then I'm just taking a nail file and sanding the edge. Now I did want to Mod Podge this on. I'm making one for my daughter and one for me. So also here you can see I always like to take my little plaques and twirl them around and around to make sure I'm getting them right in the middle, and then I glue them down in a way where I'm kind of just tipping it upwards and putting the glue underneath to make sure that it's in the middle still when I finally go to hot glue it down. And then I'm just using this decorative moss here. It's kind of a mix of green and brown. It's like Spanish moss and moss mixed together, but it's really nice. And then I'm using more of this lycopodium. I believe they bring this out during the coastal time, thinking this is good for coastal decor, but I actually think it's better for Christmas. But so hopefully they'll bring it out for Christmas. If not, look for it again around the summertime, because that's when I found it. Same time they brought out the coastal decor. I'm just sticking little leftover pieces of that here and there because it does look like pine, and it just adds kind of a wild Christmassy look. I love the look of that stuff. These are some really awesome bells I found on Temu that are already aged. They're ready to go, and it was like a lightning deal. I think I got like 15 of them for $3. It was just such a good deal for the amount you get, and that they were already done. And of course, they're not giving off the cinnamon. You can use a cinnamon trick though. You can always paint your little jingle bells kind of lightly brown, just sponge it on there and then sprinkle on cinnamon while it's still wet, and it will give you the same effect. And here's another find from Temu that I thought was so cute. Those were like 78 cents. They're little wooden beads, but they're painted like Christmas candy. Look at that, isn't that cute? And I took that gingham print ribbon there. That was from the Dollar Tree. I tied it with some of the twine from Dollar Tree, and then I tied it onto the bells. I couldn't get the ribbon through the bells, so I just used twine, and that turned out really cute. Now I'm just gluing on some berries. I got these off of Amazon. The link is down below in my description box. And although I am using crafting paper from Temu, I do have links to vintage Santa and vintage imagery, as well as different patterns just from all the years of crafting. So the free printables will be down below in my description box. There will be links down there you can click if you want to recreate this craft or something very similar. And you just click the word more underneath the video and a drop down menu will appear, and that's where you'll find all the links. But I think this came up so pretty. This next project, you're going to need this free printable, which will be down below in my description box. Just click the link and it will take you right to it. And this Dollar Tree round, which I got at Valentine's Day. Well, not on the day, but around the time of Valentine's. And I'm just removing the back sticker. We're going to be working with the back here since it's already a nice blank slate. Now I start off painting this white because I'm thinking that's a nice neutral color and it will work for my free printable. But after I look at my free printable, I realize that this color here, which is Waverly chalk paint in the color plaster, is almost an identical match. Look at that, you can see it. So I repaint it, and now I'm just cutting my imagery out off of the cardstock. I just use a regular tissue paper, I tape it down on cardstock and run it through my printer. That's all there is to it. So I start off using the water pen from the Dollar Tree, and I'm pretty excited about it, but it squirts out way too much water with tissue paper. I don't have enough control, and it ends up, causing the ink to bleed a little bit. So I just finish it off with dry tearing, and I just hold it really tight to control it so that it doesn't tear into the letters. And now I'm using the Elmer's glue stick, and I'm going to glue this image down on this round, and then check all the edges there and make sure right there's a little bit of that green running ink stuff. So I'm just cutting it out with my craft knife, if you're wondering what I'm doing there. Anywhere that the ink kind of smeared from too much water, I did have to correct it, but don't worry, everything's going to look great. So I do my edges last. I always do. I'm real generous to get the main image down, and then I go around the center, the edges just where I need to, so that the glue doesn't go too far over the edges onto the wood part where I don't want it to be. Next, I'm using the color Pewter Gray in Apple Barrel paint, and I'm taking a baby white, and I'm more or less staining the edges to get it to match even further and to make it look more rustic and distressed and just more like a wooden outdoor sign. I like that you can see the torn paper a little bit, but I still blend it in, and I even paint a little bit on the tissue paper. You'll see me do that. To me, that makes it more cohesive and it kind of pulls the piece together, but this is much less noticeable than vinyl. I mean, vinyl really is just like a sticker on your craft. So when you use a Cricut, if you're okay with that, seeing that in the daylight where you can tell there's like a sticker on your projects, you're definitely going to be okay with the tissue paper method because it's even less noticeable. And of course, with the imagery, you can get much more complicated and intricate designs. You know what I mean? Like you could actually print up an entire scenery of the landscape or something and put it on your craft. So I love using tissue paper. It's one of my favorite ways to transfer. And look at that. Isn't that beautiful? So the next color I'm using is Burnt Umber from Apple Barrel Paint. Also using the baby wipe, just going around the edge and distressing. I start off really conservative, and then I get a little braver and I go a little bit more, adding a little bit of faux chips and things like that. You just have to kind of work with this until you feel like you're comfortable with it. I go with a buffalo check bow, just a simple bow. No tails, that's it. I want to keep it simple. And then I kept the bow from the cutting board from the Dollar Tree right there. It comes with a little bow. I took it off, and I always save it because it has the black beads on the end, and I love that bow. But I am tacking it up on the buffalo check bow just so it doesn't cover the words old-fashioned. And now I'm using some pine. I was going to use some berries, and in the end I went, no, I want to keep this very simple. That's the beauty of it. It just looks awesome. But that's it, and I love this. For this project, we're starting off with the Dollar Tree little pie tin there. You could make this actually an ornament because of the hanger, but I'm cutting the ends off and making them shorter because they were going to kind of get in the way of what I was doing. I'm using some paper I got from Temu, but I will have free printables down for you below because I've also made these kind of things and they are on my free printable website. So the links will be down there for you. And I'm just going to leave the entire site, the website, so that you can see all of the choices that you have, including all the vintage things. So this is also from Temu. It was a great deal. These were under $2, I think. Big package, came with a lot of choices, definitely going to last me for a while. And this is another one of their vintage Santas. I'm just cutting him out, and I just cut the little circle out. It was Joy to the World, it's lyrics. I thought that was cute. I'm gonna use this glue stick and I'm gonna glue it down. That's it. Now the glue stick worked really good, just putting it straight down onto the pie tin. You didn't need to do your paper. Santa, I had to do the paper, so in that case you have to go carefully so you don't wrinkle them. I'm sure you guys know if you rub too hard you can wrinkle them. And you saw me take a tissue there and wipe off the excess dry glue from the glue stick that was oozing past the seams there. And this is sped up 5 times, but I'm going and putting a thin ribbon of hot glue around the edge here because I wanted to use this red and white twine. I thought that would make a super cute border for this picture, and I'm just taking my time. If you do this and you take your time, you will not see any hot glue over the edge of the twine. You just have to go slow. So I'm showing you up close here that I did decide, even though I had cut those shorter, they were still in the way. So I did decide to put a little bit of hot glue on each one of those and tuck them up on the top there so that they're tacked up to the pie pan and not hanging down anymore. I get a lot of questions about the pine that I'm using. All of the pine in this video is from Amazon. The links are down below in my description box. They're very good deals. And because I do craft before Dollar Tree brings out their Christmas stuff, I usually have to buy some things ahead of time. And so I try to look for competitive prices, and you get quite a bit for the price. And of course, they're much better quality looking, but it's close to Dollar Tree. However, last year they were definitely rocking the pine. I'm actually adding a burlap ribbon here. That's from Temu. They're very competitive right now with the Dollar Tree because I think I got 12 yards of that for about $1.50, so it was coming in much cheaper. And then I'm using the Dollar Tree ribbon on the top there. I love that one. I saved it for Christmas. I think they bring it out for like the 4th of July around, well, it was there at summertime. I'm showing you here that you can choose a snowflake if you want, but I had made a cutting board with this little candy, also from Temu, super cheap. And I decided to stay in a theme here. Thought that would be fun. And I'm just adding some florals, mostly just pine. I was going to put some boxwood in here and it was just too heavy for the tin, so I stayed with the little tiny bits of pine. And I want to say I don't use the big pieces, like right there, those pieces on the side. You'll see me just cut one off. That's all you need to make a big statement. You don't need to use big pieces off of your florals. You can certainly stretch those and make them go far. But that's pretty much it, and I love the way this guy came out. Grab 2 of these Dollar Tree lanterns and 2 of their candlestick holders, and I'm just starting by removing all of the little tags and the little metal pieces on the top. Next, you're going to pop out the candles that come in the bottom of them. They just pop out really easy, so no worries there. And they also fit the standard little candles they sell as well, so if those burn out, they are replaceable, which is nice. Next, I'm taking some Waverly chalk paint in the color ink, which is essentially just black, and I'm going to paint these entire lanterns inside and out black. Now, I would recommend you use spray paint. It's just it was raining that day and I didn't want to do it in the basement because of the odors. I didn't have my fan set up, so I just went ahead and did chalk paint, but these really are prone to chipping, and I think spray paint definitely is the way to go for this one. Next, I'm going to show you a really neat holly little hack here that I've been using for years. I just didn't think to mention it to you guys until now. I usually seal anything black where you can see that it's just paint on plastic with hairspray. Not to really seal it because this is going to need more, but it makes it look more like wrought iron that way. Check it out. I usually like to sponge on some paint on the candles, also for a faux wax, but I discovered the hard way here when I went to push these back in. They are such a tight fit that it actually scraped off some of the paint. So either skip that part or do it after you get the candles in. I had to touch it up through the little windows there. So for embellishment, I'm just adding some bows here with ribbons and colors that I have for my other decor. We kind of have a theme going this year, and I just put it on with the black wire from the Dollar Tree. Now I'm going to put glue on the back of the bow to add, sorry, you can hear my cat. He wants to come inside. We're going to add some pine to the bow underneath here so that we can reuse these candlestick holders for other seasons. For the lanterns that sit on top, I'm just going to use the double-sided sticky tape they sell at the Dollar Tree because it's not that sticky, so it's actually perfect for this. You can just put it down and that way you can change out the candle when they burn out. I'm adding some Baker twine bows on the top. These would be great for a tablescape. If you have guests over at Christmas, let me know what you think. Here's a lamp. Wanted to show you how bright it is. These are so cute. I found these this year, and this time we're going to turn this candlestick holder upside down. We're going to paint the top of the ceramic there with some white paint. It's apple barrel paint in matte, and just the rim. See how I'm just concentrating on the edge there where the ceramic glaze didn't quite get down there. You don't have to do this. You can skip it, but it makes it less noticeable that it's upside down. I mean, you can't tell that way. So it's a perfect little fit for these lanterns. Fast, easy, so adorable. You can decorate them for every single season. Christmas, fall, spring, it doesn't matter. Here I'm showing them kind of with a Christmas theme. And take this plain see-through glass dish, put it on top of that glass candlestick holder, and voila, you have such an elegant platform for either food or seasonal decor. I'm showing you here with some Christmas decor on top because I think it's so pretty. Project. I got 3 of these ornaments from Walmart on 90% off. It's a great time to get Christmas ornaments when they're already done with their big 75% off sale. You go through a big bin and you kind of have to dig and search, but I think these were about 20 cents each. So this is also a great DIY for my international viewers as well, or anyone who isn't by a good Dollar Tree, because you literally just have to find some festive looking material around your house and some cotton balls and some tall stand and you're good to go. So I start off by cutting off the bottom of these little Christmas trees here, including the one with the felt right there. And then I'm going to go ahead and take some hot glue and glue them together. And you can make these, I only had 3 of these all together because that's all I could find in the bin, but you certainly could make 4 or 5 of these and make a taller tree. And I'm taking a Dollar Tree skewer. You don't have to have a Dollar Tree skewer. It can be any stick that has a point on the end. And I'm just putting it up the center. Now I did make a mistake and cut the bottom off. So I'm going to tell you that and show you that. Make sure you don't do that. See, I'm breaking it off prematurely here. And then I end up, well, I glue the little stick on from some branches that I got off of Amazon. These are actually very pretty. There's a big bag you can get on Amazon. The link is down below in my description box. But I ended up having to put a second skewer up there. It made it more secure so it wasn't the end of the world, but you do need that brace on the back of this little tree to hold it up. So I'm just using some hot glue to glue it on the back of this stem. I'm going to get some Excelsior grass, and that, someone told me that's like shredded wood. I don't know if that's true, but it's really neat. You kind of crunch it up and shape it. The link is down below in my description box if you want to know which one I used. And I just added some glue in the middle, and then I'm going to grab my little tree, stick it down there. And if you don't know where the description box is, just look for the word more, and you're going to click that, and a drop down menu will appear underneath my video, and that's where you find all the goodies. So here's some snowflakes from Dollar Tree. They're already sticky, so I just stuck it on the top of this tree, and that's it. You have a super tall and elegant Christmas tree that costs pennies on the dollar. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. And as always, until the next one, breathe deep, fret not, and do things that make you happy.